Hello, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. Welcome to Seymour's World. We're all about opening minds and facilitating conversations. I don't know if you had a chance to see last week's broadcast, but it was an excellent one with Bernard Offen. He is a Holocaust survivor, and he helped us understand how his life transpired from the age of 12 years old. He's now 86 and has done an amazing job of trying to help people realize what life was like during the Holocaust. This week, we have another amazing speaker. I want to introduce you to Konstantin Kostin, who is from St. Petersburg, Russia. I have known Konstantin for about 10 years, is that right? About 10 years. When I took my son, Aaron, to Russia, and Konstantin was our guide. And as a young man, a little younger than you are now, but as a young man, it was amazing. He was able to give us not only the flavor and the culture of Russia, but at the time, Russia was undergoing a lot of change, and we were very interested in understanding what was happening in Russia. So I have invited him here today to talk to us about Russia, about U.S.-Russia relationships, about his different feelings about the changes that have transpired over the last few years. So without further ado, I'd like you, Konstantin, to tell us a little bit about your life. And you are a tremendous scholar. We have so many references, I could not even mention them in the time that we have. But you're extremely educated. You're a Fulbright Scholar. And there are not that many out of Russia, so I'm very impressed by that. So please give us a little bit of history.
Well, thank you very much, Seymour, and thank you for having me for the show. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's good to see you again.
Good.
Well, just a little bit of my background. I got my education both in Russia, Germany, and the United States. So I got my bachelor's and my master's degree in Russia and in Germany, and it was more on the technical side of it. And because I believe that Russia has a rather strong foundation in science. But I always wanted to get the degree in business. And to me, United States is the country where the best business practices exist and where the best education in business in the world could be obtained. So because I didn't have any money at the time, I was applying the first time I was in high school, so I won a contest. I applied for a contest, and I was able to graduate from high school in the United States. And later in life, I applied for a scholarship, and I was able to receive my business degree in the United States.
Terrific.
And then I got my PhD, also in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I was selected to be a Fulbright Scholar, and I was a visiting professor in Florida for the past 6 months, where I taught and did research and actually created a new course in e-marketing. So that was a very, very interesting experience for me.
So you've traveled around the world teaching as well.
Right, but I'm an associate professor at the St. Petersburg State University of Economics, where I teach international programs along with other courses for the Russian students. So I don't want you to get the impression that I travel around the world lecturing. I represented the school at several schools in Great Britain, in the Netherlands, in Finland. So indeed, I have taught as a visiting professor a number of courses there, and some of them include international marketing, revenue management. Doing business in Russia is a very, very interesting course that most students and universities across the board show interest in.
We are obviously going to talk a lot about doing business in Russia and what it's like there today compared to way back when. But I did want to touch upon something, as you were studying in Russia and then you came to study in the U.S., what was it like? What was the difference in how students studied in both those countries?
Well, from the student perspective, my being a professor right now, I should say probably the students are all the same. It doesn't really matter where you are. I mean, there would be the top level students that would be the high performers, and in my days, I kind of strive for that I was almost a 4.0, well, 4.0 student, because to me that was the only way to get scholarships. And based on my experience both at home and here, you have the incentives to do so, because then you can apply. Well, in the Soviet Union, the education was free in the old days. But if you don't perform well, they will expel you from the university. So the incentive was to study hard and do well. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to graduate. And in today's world, from what I saw, for example, in Florida, students that study well in high school, they can get a scholarship to go to school and basically have all the expenses paid for by the state. So which also gives them the incentive to study well. But apart from that, the human component is of course there. I mean, you either have the motivation or you don't. So somebody has a roadmap for him or herself and somebody doesn't. And the earlier you have one, the better you will, the more successful you will be.
What about the standards of education? We've heard a lot about the U.S. standards of education not being as good as some of the other countries in the world. What is it like in Russia?
I should say that you have to look at different areas there, different study areas. Russia historically is very strong in science, in chemistry, in physics. And there are a lot of examples of very successful scientists that unfortunately for Russia have left the country after the perestroika, the breakup of the Soviet Union. So the brain drain took probably close to 20,000 scientists. So you look at, for example, a scientist by the last name of Game, who invented the graphene, the new material. He became a Nobel Prize winner, but in Manchester, whereas he did his research initially and got his education in Russia. So the science, the chemistry, this, I think, it's a very solid foundation. Whereas if you look at and part of the reason why I wanted to get my degree in business in the United States is public relations, business, economics. If you look at it, Russia was governed by the command administrative economy for so many years, for 70 years. I mean, it simply has no experience as the United States has. It doesn't have the books and the facilities that the United States has. So I think United States, I would say, in my opinion, is the lead country in the world in business. So if you were to compare that sector, I think the U.S. definitely has an advantage.
What about capitalism, democracy? What has happened? When I saw you last, of course, it was 10 years ago, and everything was up in the air, things were changing, and we were just getting a grasp of where Russia was going to go. What has really happened in the last 10 years?
Well, I think, obviously, Russia had probably not a simple path on its way to the state of things now. So it wasn't an easy road because obviously democracy, people in many ways, they received all this freedom. Maybe even it was too much freedom to comprehend at the time because they were expecting something, a miracle to happen, which it didn't, because economically a lot of them suffered during the process of transitioning to the market economy. Because like I said, the country was managed by command administrative system, so the standard of living fell. But I should say that now, for the past number of years, we definitely have stability. So the income, the purchasing power parity went up. So an average citizen is living, I would say, much better than he or she were probably 10 years ago. I mean, if you look at some numbers, not to just, say that, if you were to compare, let's say, the first 6 months of 2011 to the first 6 months of 2012, and just look at the amount of money that people borrowed for the mortgages, it went up 60%. Mm. That tells you something. That clearly tells you that the population, well, is at least making somewhat more money to be able to qualify to get those mortgages. And of course, the reason the numbers are so huge is because We used to not have the Institute of Mortgages. The whole system wasn't in place under the Soviet system. But nevertheless, I would say that Russia is often viewed as part of the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Well, the poverty level, there is an indicator there which defines the poverty level. So if you assume the poverty level of being like $2 a day, I believe India would have around 70% of the population close to that. China, as of 2008, had 30% around that average. Brazil around 10%, and Russia only 0.05%.
Oh.
So definitely we have, I would say, stability now and better living conditions.
What about the banking system? It's a very important piece of the puzzle to make sure that everything works, especially if you're having loans go out. You're aware of the crisis we had here a couple of years ago and what happened because of that crisis. Today, how is the banking? Is it a stable banking system in Russia?
I would say it is rather stable, and part of it is, I think, in the smart policy of the central bank, where if you look at the ruble, and the ruble is the national currency in Russia, it basically is tied to the bi-currency basket, which consists of euro and the dollar. So we're looking at 1 ruble, 55% of it is the dollar component, and 45% is the euro component. And then the central bank regulates the course so that the ruble pretty much stays stable by making the currency interventions. So,
So your feeling is that the business in Russia, it sounds like it's moving ahead very well. It's obviously quite different from the days of the empire that you had before, with the USSR controlling everything and the socialist system. What about your own personal life? What is it like now? Do you feel more freedom, or do you still feel that there is somebody watching you?
Well, we have a mutual friend, Lisa, in St. Petersburg. I asked her, and she has a business in St. Petersburg, and she has been living there for a number of years. I asked her a couple of years ago, I said, Lisa, you're here in Russia, why are you not going back? And she told me, which was kind of interesting, she said, Konstantin, you have so much more freedom here. You're so much more free to do whatever you want, business-wise, personal life-wise. So that was kind of an opinion of an American living in Russia. But I should say, if you obey the law, and if you follow all the rules of regulation business-wise, you should be pretty much in the good shape. Actually, one of the misconceptions about Russia is that we have mafia and high crime. But if you look at the numbers, which is interesting, there is a crime index, which it's a scale from 0 to 100, with 50 being average and 100 being the highest. Well, guess what? Russia is a safer place than the United States. Well, just by a little bit, by a fraction of a percent. We are, I think, 53.39, and the United States is 53.42. So.
Well, I don't know if that's maybe a topic we have to discuss on another day. But here in the West, obviously, we have been pounding on Russia. I mean, just look at the Sochi Olympics, how we were extremely negative about the terrorism issue and the water and the hotels issue. And you and I have had many discussions about that. I feel we should be looking at Russia as a growing economy and a country that's going to move forward in the world, and it has tremendous natural resources, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can touch upon Sochi Olympics as well, to kind of give you my opinion on that if you want. But speaking of natural resources, indeed, we have a lot of oil and gas. Gas-wise, we have actually the largest resorts in the world. On one hand, it's good. On the other hand, it's lagging the country behind in a way, because we mostly export natural resources. And even though the government tries to facilitate business development, and if you look at the small business, it's growing probably at a pace, if you average the past 5 years, at about 10% rate. the growth rate in small business, which is a good number, I should say. But if you look at 2012, probably we had about 350,000 small businesses, which for Russia with 11 time zones, it's not a lot. Even though if you look at the turnover, if you convert it from rubles, you'll get about probably $50 billion of turnover, which is a fairly good number, but still the country is mostly relying on exports of oil and gas, which is something that it should be drifting away from. It should be doing more to facilitate the small businesses. And to answer your question about Sochi, in my opinion, yes. I mean, there is talk about...
Let's hold on for one minute because we have to go to break.
All right.
But Sochi, just before we go to break, I just want you to know that I am very impressed with what's going on over there. And I'm not saying that because I have the Russian mafia behind me. I'm saying it because I believe it. Let's go to break. This is Seymour's World. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii. We are with Konstantin Kostin, from St. Petersburg, Russia. An economist, a Fulbright Scholar, a author of 4 books, I believe. You own a tour company, by the way. Before we get into Sochi, let's talk about your tour company a little bit.
Well, actually, that company brought us together. We know each other because of that. Yes, I do have a small business, and if we can have it on the screen, it is. Right, and the website is, it's quite easy, www.stpetersburgtours.org. We do offer full-frame services, accommodations, and tour guiding, personal tour guiding. So we focus on people, and part of it, of course, is the money, but to me, mostly it's the experiences. It is meeting people like Seymour and becoming friends. I think this is more important than just expanding it into a huge business, which could be done, but it's not my goal.
Well, can we just take a minute to discuss your tour company business? Because when we first went to Russia, my son and Aaron came with me, and we were there, and we were supposed to hook up with Konstantin, and we were across the street from the Hermitage. We were staying in Lisa's flats.
Correct.
And funny story. Konstantin said, "You'll cross over the bridge and you'll see my limousine right around the corner from the bridge." Well, Aaron and I crossed the bridge, and of course we thought a limousine was a limousine. And we couldn't figure out, where is he? Finally he calls me again, and the limousine was a Lada, if I remember correctly, and the back door didn't open either.
Oh, for Christ's sake, it was a rebuilt Lada.
In those days, it was amazing. But the tour we got from Konstantin, not just the tour itself and going to the Hermitage and all of the beauty of St. Petersburg, which I believe is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The idea was that we were able to talk with you, and I think if you could offer that to a lot of people that come, not just to show the sights, but to actually explain the history of St. Petersburg, to make them understand why the people are the way they are, it is absolutely fabulous. Okay, let's get back to Sochi. I want to talk about the conception or misconception about $53 billion that was spent on the Olympics, and the idea that a lot of it was graft, corruption, etc. Give us your understanding of it.
Well, as I said, I'm a technical guy, and an economist, so I like numbers. Let's look at some numbers. Well, first of all, if you look at Sochi, correct, $53 billion, but out of them only $6.4 billion went towards the Olympics themselves. The rest went towards infrastructure. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there is no corruption in Russia and it's all perfect. This is not the case. Probably, maybe some of the money was lost, but you kind of need evidence of that. So far, I didn't see any court hearings or anything in relation to that, and quite frankly, I mean, if you look at the United States, off and on, I hear on TV, you know, one politician is accused of corruption. The good thing in Russia is that corruption is being addressed by the president and the prime minister. There is a war against corruption. Again, there is a corruption index also. I believe it ranks countries from 1 to 177, and I looked at the progression. Again, if you look at the BRIC countries, all the countries, with the exception of Russia, they climbed up the index, which is not good. Whereas Russia, being high up in the index, it went down to 127, which still is not a very good number, but the trend is positive, so it's going down. And again, if you look at the Sochi, the breakdown, 6.4 billion, like I said, was spent on the Olympics, and the rest were spent on the infrastructure. Going back to the Soviet times, Sochi had a port, but it wasn't really a port. Right now, it's a full-frame port. It's basically the southern gates of Russia. So the train system is in place. All the infrastructure for tourism is in place. So the goal was actually to revitalize the region. And if you look at it, in Sochi, we've got zero unemployment now. So the average unemployment in Russia is about at the level of 6%. By investing all this money, they created 500,000 jobs. And quite honestly, I support this. I think if you look at the United States, under President Eisenhower, the system of highways going south, north, south, east, west, he looked at the example of Germany and the Autobahn. Well, if it were up to me, I'd take it further and I'd create this grid of roads going south, north, and east to west, and pick it up being Sochi as the first push towards that. And just basically create more jobs and boost the small business and everything, because in the United States, the roads, they facilitated growth in many ways. So I think Sochi is it's a great start.
I think it is too. Obviously, social programs are of great concern to America. You know, we have our Obamacare and our healthcare issues. What is it like over there? What's the medical system like?
The medical system, every citizen, every Russian citizen is eligible for medical care.
Is it free? Free medical care?
It is free. The other thing is you also can purchase additional insurance, and you can get also medical care when you have a special insurance. And in many cases, it makes sense to have an extra plan. For example, if you have some kind of a surgery like a knee replacement, with the state care, you may be waiting in line for so long, whereas if you have a special plan or if you pay for it, you'll have it done much faster. So again, I believe Russia should be working more on the medical system, because again, if you compare to what it used to look like, and I'm not advertising the Soviet Union or anything like that, but in a way it was a better system because it was free and very accessible, and it still is free, but still you kind of need to work towards probably better support for doctors, training for doctors also. But to answer your question, every Russian is eligible for free medical care.
And social services, are they because previous to the new Russia, everything was included, right? Everybody was taken care of.
Right.
Is there a wider gap now where people are not being taken care of because of the new way of doing things in Russia?
Right. Well, I see kind of the similar trend in the United States. If you look at the gap between the rich and the poor, And Russia does have a middle class that emerged over the past 10 years. Going back to also that question, how it had transformed over the past 10 years. Nevertheless, when President Putin was the prime minister, he wrote an article on actually social issues, social policy. And there he addressed the gap between the rich and the poor, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the difference is 16 times between the amount of wealth between the rich and the poor. And his statement was to narrow that gap, to work more on the social policy, because that creates social tension, because obviously, you know, the low income population obviously is not doing as well as the upper class. Mm-hmm. So the government is taking steps to narrowing that gap down, but like I said, it would definitely make sense to drift away from the oil and gas dependency and to boost the small business development and industry development more, to have a better social system and more social programs in place.
Let's talk about the U.S.-Russia relationship, because you're bringing up a lot of
Right.
comparisons between U.S. and Russia. And obviously, those in glass houses should not throw stones. We are not perfect by far, and I'm sure Russia's not perfect by far. What do you see as the key ingredient to making a better relationship between the two countries?
Well, I think we should learn how to be friends rather than confront each other oftentimes. I think we have to respect our position. And when I say respect our position, I mean on all fronts. We have a good Russian saying which goes, a bad peace is better than a good fight. Probably the best translation in English would be, a bad compromise is better than a good lawsuit. So I think this is key, to keep this in mind, to respect each other and to work towards the common goals, rather than having every country pulling the blanket, you know, towards each other. This is,
we have an issue, of course, with our media and their sensationalism and all the, they're always looking at the negative side of things. We don't see too much that's right. What about the media in Russia? Is it much more open than it used to be, or is it still very controlled?
To me, it's rather open. And I mean, basically, any opinion could be expressed. We even have a term which is called yellow press, which writes all kinds of different things. I mean, and some of it probably, in a way, doesn't help educate the teenagers, because a lot of the stuff that they write about, I think it's even too much. And with respect to the content, it would make sense to solicit some of it that were to affect the younger generation, you know, with respect to maybe more, going back to more moral values, morality, you know, family, idea of having a family and so forth.
We did touch upon some of the social issues, but one of them that unfortunately has hit our press is the anti-gay law that has come about. Could you describe it a little bit better, not from the press point of view, but from the way you see it as a Russian citizen?
Well, first of all, oftentimes in the United States, I saw it being presented in the wrong way. There is a law in Russia, but it's not, in no way it is anti-gay. It is actually, it is about advertising gay behavior to the minors being under 18th years of age. So, speaking of the law side of it, the body of law does not discriminate against gay people in no way. There is only advertisement of that behavior to the minors that I believe is punishable by a fine. But oftentimes I saw here as if there is a law that punishes people, gay people, but that's not the case. It is about, like I said, advertising it to the underage minors.
What about religious freedom?
Well, Russia is a multi-ethnic community. We consist of 83 administrative units, and we have all kinds of nationalities that live there, from Russian Orthodox to Jews to Muslims to Catholics. We are very diverse, which probably makes it more challenging, given the 11 time zones and how big Russia is, being the largest country in the world territory-wise, to address all the groups in a way. But they all have a voice, so there is freedom to have right.
There's no persecutions or anti-Semitism or anything that it's was left over from the old days. Basically, has that disappeared?
Well, quite frankly, I don't think we really, even under the Soviet system, I can't say we had like anti-Semitism. I think it all depends on the person in many ways, and on the level of education. According to the Russian Constitution, be it under the Soviet system or now, everybody is equal. I mean, there was no such thing as segregation, for example, in the Soviet Union. By Constitution, everybody is equal. And I think it mostly has to do with how educated you are, and that how you treat other people would depend on that.
We are going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about doing business in Russia as an American.
Right.
Because I have many people who I know who have done business in Russia. And Lisa, for instance, has done extremely well, and I have many that have asked me in prelude to this discussion today about what is it like for us to go over there and start businesses. So I'm looking forward to that in the next few minutes. This is Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, welcome back to Seymour's World. I'm Seymour Kazimierski. Our guest today is Konstantin Kostin from St. Petersburg, Russia, a scholar, an economist, a tour guide, well, actually your own tour company. He's a jack of all trades and has become very, very successful lecturing, I dare say, all over the world, because to many, many different countries. Now we want to talk about doing business in Russia as an American. I've known several people who have done very good business, a lot of them in real estate, a lot of them in bartering and trade, for instance. Now we know that oil and gas are the biggest export of Russia. What about the welcoming of American business people in Russia?
Right. Before I answer, Seymour, if I can make just a comment, I would say, speaking of jack of all trades, I'm basically a professor now. Okay. So I teach business, international marketing, and I have the small tour guiding business. Okay. So I wouldn't call myself a jack of all trades, because I kind of narrowed it down to a particular field.
That's terrific.
Right. So I actually had an experience. I worked in the business world myself for a number of years. I worked in the banking industry. I worked for Citigroup in Russia. I worked for the Russian Financial Corporation. We're also being in charge of the Northwestern Division for investments. I would say there are a lot of opportunities for foreign businesses and American businesses in particular. Well, number one, a lot of them are already in Russia. Well, a number of sectors that I can name. For example, automobile industry. Ford is in Russia, next to St. Petersburg. They have a plant. If you look at numbers, the car sales, by 2014, Russia is predicted to become the largest automobile market in Europe, because again, if you look at the 6-month period in first 6 months of 2012, the car sales in Europe went down, luxury car sales went down 6.8%. In Russia, they went up 14%. So it is really a great market for that. So automobile would be a good industry. One thing you have to keep in mind also is taxation. Russia has one of the, probably one of the better tax regimes in the world because, for example, income tax-wise, we have a flat income tax, personal income tax, which is 13%, which is rather low. The famous actor, Gérard Depardieu, a French actor, he actually applied for Russian citizenship just recently, last year, and got it because of the favorable tax system. So we also have the so-called special economic zones. So a lot of companies, also American companies, that plan to really vehicle their growth in Russia, they can choose to be located in one of those zones. One is close to St. Petersburg, and there are several companies operating there. For example, in pharmaceuticals would be also a good area. So taxation is there. We're part of the World Trade Organization as of 2012. So Russia is lowering all the tariffs, and I think within the next 5-10 years, we're going to eliminate them probably completely based on the agreement as becoming part of the WTO. Plus, if you really look at it, the discount rate in Russia, the rate at which the central bank loans money to commercial banks, is 8.25%. So if you look at American business, the discount rate in the United States is 0.25%. So they can be very competitive in Russia. And the money that they use gives them a competitive advantage over there because the cost of borrowing here is much lower. On top of that, there is a term in the industry life cycle. When you look at different industries, you go from the introduction stage to maturity and decline, and then you have growth and expansion. Well, most industries, with the exception of oil and gas, by the way, are in either introductory or growth stage.
Are you seeing a lot of American companies coming over?
Quite a few. I mean, first of all, Citigroup is there, 3M is there, Ford is there, Wrigley is there, Coca-Cola is there. So you have a quite diverse representation in different sectors. So
what about foreign companies from China, Japan, Asian companies?
Yeah, Asian companies are there as well. Well, as you know, Russia basically is very near China and Japan. So there are a number of businesses and a lot of companies actually working together with the Chinese, for example. To my knowledge, furniture and just production of goods and so forth. Also food processing. Russia is to become, by 2018, there is an opinion that Russia will be the largest food processing market in Europe also. So
what about the high-tech sector?
High-tech sector is also developing. Of course, probably there should be, and in a way, going back to Sochi Olympics, the reason so much money was also spent was to show that high-tech is present in Russia. And if you look at the train system in place there, this is a demonstration of the port and of the different things that they use during the Olympics to show the world that we are actually a rather technological country. And I think that's pretty much obvious by watching the Olympics, even given some of the negative information that one can hear on the news here in the U.S.
Well, notwithstanding the negative information, I think everybody is impressed with the facility at Sochi. There's no doubt about it. What about from the standpoint that an American businessman wants to go there and open up a business? Can he do it very easily? Are there a lot of tariffs, and are there a lot of issues that he's going to face in trying to open up a business?
Well, again, being a business professor, there is another index, the ease of doing business. And again, the reason I bring up BRIC is because Russia is typically, if you look in literature, it's being compared to other Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and South Africa now. But given that index, Russia has the lowest number there compared to all the countries, speaking of ease of doing business. Of course, there are probably certain hindrances there, but if you were to compare it, given the index, to other BRIC countries, it is easier than in India, China, and Brazil to start a business there.
And what about visa requirements? Are they being relaxed, or are they?
I don't see any difficulty to a foreign national to get a visa. And, well, I mentioned Gerard Depardieu, who chose to get the Russian citizenship and was able to get it last year just because he wanted to enjoy the tax benefits in Russia. So Russia welcomes foreign direct investment. If you look at numbers, for example, comparing 2011 and 2012, all the countries that invested into Russia, the amount of investment went up. And President Putin, being the prime minister, I believe it was in February of 2 years ago, I believe it was, he did say that Russia is, well, I might misquote him, but it's in the top 5 economies in the world that welcome foreign direct investment. And if you look at numbers, indeed, you can see growth there. So
Wonderful.
the countries do invest.
Well, you're painting a wonderful picture. I would like to get back, we have to take a short break, but I'd like to get back to Mr. Putin and U.S.-Russia relationships. I think it's something that we should explore a little bit more for our viewers. You're watching Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Welcome back to Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii. ThinkTech Hawaii. We are with Konstantin Kostin from St. Petersburg, Russia. We're talking about U.S.-Russia relations. I have to say that Mr. Putin has, in my opinion, been a very, very strong politician and has really done a fabulous job, I think, of showing his agenda in its real form. Now, the question is it the right agenda? How is there going to be somebody after Putin who you see as being as strong as him? What is Russia going to be like after him?
Well, if you look at today's world, I don't think there is a better candidate to be in charge of Russia, to be president. And I think with all the challenges that he faced and still faces, he was able to bring stability to the population. Again, if you look at numbers, if you look at purchasing power parity, if you look at average incomes, it's a stable life. So I mentioned the mortgages, I mentioned the automobile industry, the consumption, and so forth. This all supports the statement that, you know, stability is there and there is growth. I don't see anybody right now on the Russian political arena who would do a better job. Yes, there are challenges, of course, and the president addresses them. He recognizes that corruption is a problem and there are steps being taken to fight it. There is recognition that we do have a dependency on oil and gas and we should drift away from it. Maybe we should do more, but in my opinion, Sochi, with the infrastructure in place, with the port, with the train system and so forth, with the jobs that were being created, maybe this is one of those steps that are being, well, in my opinion, it is one of the steps that are being taken to basically bring about small business, medium-sized business, and try to develop Russia more, not just the biggest cities, Moscow, St. Petersburg, and others, but kind of spread the growth across the country.
Let's talk about the travel industry now that you're
Sure.
talking about
Yeah.
growth. I mean, obviously, I came to visit you a long time ago, and I'm coming back again this spring. What is it like?
We won't charge you anything.
Oh,
Seymour.
really?
It's all free.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm there.
Actually, you can even stay with me.
No, I did not stay with you. But let's talk about travel. Are Russians traveling outside more freely? Is tourism up? Is it? I mean, Sochi is going to do a tremendous amount, obviously, for your tourism. But what's it like? Tell us about people coming in and people going
Right.
out.
Again, if you look at numbers, the numbers are going up. Be it Russians traveling outside Russia, 10 years ago and today, the numbers keep going up. Different tourist destinations outside Russia, from Turkey to Egypt and many others. Finland, for example, our neighbor. Part of their economy is dependent, I would say, on Russia. We have a lot of students at my school in St. Petersburg from Finland, eager to learn Russian, to learn Russian business ethics and laws, because they will have a better chance to be placed in Finland. So traveling definitely has gone up. And the good thing about, again, Sochi is not only people are able to travel outside Russia and can afford it, they can now travel internally, and they can be tourists with, I mean, we have beautiful locations also across Russia, Lake Baikal, for example. A lot of foreigners are lured there, and a lot of Russians want to go there. So it is important to work on the infrastructure and the distribution system also, because then more and more businesses will be coming in.
Do you see tourism as being a growing industry in Russia?
Absolutely. I mean, well, for example, my business, my logo is to keep it small and focus on individual customer. So it's like you have mentioned, it's an experience. If somebody comes, we don't have any Ladas anymore. I'm sorry. We have air-conditioned
I
cars
like
now.
the Lada.
Did you like the engine which was rebuilt?
Well, I liked it because I could smell it every
Right.
single minute that I was in the car.
Well-
It was terrific.
Well, right now, we have full coverage, insurance, just to be on the safe side.
What
so
about,
that's
is there a Russian automobile industry left, or is it
well, like I mentioned, Ford, Nissan, Toyota, they're all, even Citigroup, they have legal entities that are Russian. The other thing is that part of it can be owned by foreigners, but it's a legal entity registered in Russia. Therefore, when you look at cars manufactured there, be it Ford or Volkswagen, you can look at them as, in a way, Russian cars, because they're made there using the Russian labor. Manufactured in Russia, maybe certain parts are.
Well, it obviously
right.
contributes towards the economy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We
Not to mention, I forgot to mention the retail. The retail is growing significantly. The retail sector with grocery stores, we see a lot of chains, big chains from Germany, from Finland. Don't want to give any U.S. names, but not to promote those companies. But I would, if I were them, the giants of the giant retailers in the United States, I'd look into Russia. The only obstacle is the distribution system, the logistics. That's otherwise, they will definitely enjoy higher margins of revenue because of the industry life cycle, like I have mentioned. You don't have to really think of revenue management today, which is one of the courses that I teach. But in Russia, it's not as actual as it is here, with the many industries facing the decline stage.
Well, you have been an amazing ambassador for Russia this last hour, and I think we have learned so much from you in understanding that what we see in the press is not always what is really true, and having somebody who lives there and can tell us, not just from a scholarly point of view, which you've done extremely well, but also from the point of view that Russia is a growing country, and it's always great as a tourist to go to a growing country and to see what it's like rather than see it when there's millions of tourists that are coming there every year. I know that my experience was just fabulous, and I'm looking forward to coming back again. I want to thank you very much for giving us an excellent insight into what Russia is today. And of course, all of us are watching the Sochi Olympics, so we see it and we understand that it's a beautiful place. Those mountains are absolutely fabulous. I say thank you very much. I don't know how to say thank you in Russian.
Спасибо.
Spasibo.
And if I may, Seymour, thank you very much for having me. You're definitely welcome to St. Petersburg. I would be happy to have you. We'll do all the tours, we'll have a good time, and I would like to invite all the viewers, look at the website, www.stpetersburgtours.org, and we would be happy to take care of you on an individual or family basis. Come visit us.
Well, that just went on the screen, so you're in very good shape.
Thank
you. Let me talk to you a little bit about next week. Next week, we will be in Vancouver, Canada. I'll be working with Dave Pavlos, who is the owner and creator of The Last Door. The Last Door is a very unique addiction center that is getting world acclaim for what Dave feels is his method of not curing addiction. There's no cure to addiction, but living with addiction. So I hope you'll be able to tune in. I hope you'll maybe think about helping any addicts that you see. We can do things for them here in Hawaii that are not there today. And from my study, I have found The Last Door to be the best method of living with addiction. So I say thank you again to Konstantin. Thank you, viewers, for all your emails and all your letters and all your phone calls and texts. I'm getting them all. I try to answer every single one that I get. If I don't answer the ones that tell me I'm doing a lousy job, I just don't answer those. Thank you again. This is Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii.